Sade, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I have been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too.
Right? Because for me, I think about time in ways that other people don't. Mm-hmm. So I like to break down time in terms of days, right?
Okay.
So there are 365 days in a year?
Unless it's a leap year.
Unless it's a leap year. But if somebody were to live to 100 years old,
okay,
that's 36,500 days. Mm-hmm. Okay. Most people don't live to 100 years old. Mm-mm. So let's say most people live to 80 years old, which is still a little bit of a stretch, but we'll give 80 years old.
Women live a little longer.
That's true. So that brings them down to less than 30,000 days in their life. That's like around 29,000 days in their lives. Mm-hmm. So most people sleep anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a night. So that's about a third to a quarter of your life, right? So assuming that people are sleeping a third to a quarter of their lives, now we're down to about 20,000 days.
Yep.
That is not a lot of time.
Not at all.
Right? 20,000 anything for me is not a lot. 20,000 pens, 20,000 pencils, $20,000. It's just not a lot. Mm-hmm. And you specialize in terms of helping people manage their time.
Correct.
Okay? But before we get to time management tips from you, I kind of want to delve deep into something that you have said.
Okay.
You have said that to-do lists do not work.
Oh.
And I'm a doctor. I use to-do list all the freaking time.
You could be doing it better.
So how can I be doing it better? Tell us.
So the reason first of all, I'm really passionate about saying to-do lists don't work because one, it's provocative, right? And it's something that everyone uses and does. Like you said, you're a doctor, you use it. There's plenty of people watching this who are like, what is this girl talking about? I've been using to-do lists and they work for me. I want you to think about them differently, right? The reason I don't like to-do lists is because they're often very long, right? I've had a client, one time I asked her to create a list of things you want to do for Monday. She came up with 70 items. That's not for Monday. Who's getting 70 things done? They weren't even small tasks. They were like projects. They were all over the place. So oftentimes they're super long. They're not organized at all. They're like home things, personal things, work things, things for the kids. It's all over the place. And then they become these chaotic lists with no direction that you look at and you get overwhelmed. You're devastated by them and you just feel like less of a person almost because you're like, I'm never going to get through this list. So that's why they don't work. Most people are doing them completely wrong. So I'll tell you what to do instead. You take that list and you use it as your brain dump. It's like taking everything out of your brain and getting it onto a sheet of paper. That's a great starting point with your to-do list. So keep your to-do list at home. Just use them as a starting point. The next thing I want you to do after you have that list out is I want you to go ahead and say, what are the priorities? Meaning, what are the important things I need to get done? What are the things that I value? What are things that are moving the needle in my life, my business, et cetera, whatever pertains to you? Then I want you to select what is the top 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 things, depending on what the list looks like. That's my priority for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And now you no longer have a to-do list, but you have a priority list that's organized, clear, it has direction, it's specific, and it's short. So that way, at the end of the day, you are crossing it all off. You feel like a boss, you're fulfilled, and now you can go to sleep peacefully. All
right. Well, I'm happy that you cleared that up because what I was envisioning is I have a list, or when I was in the hospitals, I would have a list of patients that I would need to see. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's a to-do list.
Okay.
By each patient, things that I need to get done for them. Again, another to-do list. And I'm like, what do you mean that doesn't work? But what you're saying is to have a priority list instead. Mm-hmm. So that way it doesn't get so disorganized and all over the place.
Yep.
Right? I teach people how to hack their brains for health and for success. You've got a really unique way of teaching people how to sort of hack their time for more productivity, right? And that includes the priority list. But there's a couple of other things that you teach people in terms of so that they can increase their productivity. Why don't you share that with us?
So I teach a lot of things. So one of the number one things I'll say that people often don't think about is that they have some limiting beliefs around time. So a lot of times clients come to me and they're like, well, I'm not good with time. I don't have enough time. They think they're just always going to be the late person or that they're never going to be able to be consistent or disciplined. And those mindsets, if you keep them there, you'll never be able to progress in the first place. So something people don't think they need is clarity on what's going on in their mind, how they're framing and thinking about time, how they perceive time. That's something we start with in the beginning because I can't teach you systems when you already think you're going to be the late person. You're never going to be organized. You're never going to be consistent. It's just you're framing yourself in this negative light in the first place. So that's one of the big things I teach on. I also teach on discipline and consistency because if I had $1 for every time somebody told me I'm not consistent, I mean, I'd probably be like a multimillionaire right now. But the thing is, we're all consistent at doing things. They might be the wrong things. They might be things that don't pertain to where we want to go. They may be the habits that we can improve on that we're just consistently doing. And we have to learn how to break those cycles. So I teach people how to actually break those cycles. And I'm sure you know some things around that with the brain. And then that's when, after you've gotten those things together and we have understanding of getting clear on where you're at, how you can become disciplined, how you can build habits, is now you're ready for the systems. You're ready for the tools. And systems don't have to be some scary thing. It's just a process that you follow to keep your life and your business or your work life organized.
Well, I definitely want to get back to the systems that you're mentioning. But before that, what I really heard you say is that the messages that people tell themselves is really important.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I speak to all the time. What is it that you are telling yourself about time?
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to be a little bit of a brain nerd, a neuro nerd right now.
Okay.
But the messages we tell ourselves are really important because essentially what we're doing is telling our brains what to focus on. There's a group of neurons in the brain called the reticular activating system. And when you tell yourself something, basically it makes you aware of everything that has to do with that thing. So if I tell myself, oh, I'm always late, then I'm going to think about all the times that I've been late or all the things that sort of get in my way, right? Because your brain is always looking to prove you right.
Yep.
See, so the brain is always looking to prove you right. So you got to be really careful what you tell yourself. And even when it comes to time, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about these systems that you're talking about?
Yes. So it really depends on whether you're an entrepreneur or if you have a job, et cetera. But one system I know everyone needs is a system for their home, right? A lot of people, they have no systems for their home. They don't have a day to clean. They don't have a day when they cook. A lot of women, especially I work with a lot of ambitious women, and they're very career driven. And a lot of times they want to be healthy, but they have no terms of system for like their fitness or their nutrition. And those are the things that are going to impact your energy. A lot of people think, oh, time management is just me organizing my day. But it's like, no, you have to know how to manage your energy, right? And manage your focus and where your attention is going. And a lot of that plays into if you don't have nutrition systems around in place or wellness systems, or if you don't have systems for your home to keep you peaceful and not so stressed, it's going to affect how you're managing your time. So that's one of the big systems that everyone should have. But if you're a business owner, you for sure should have a system for each department in your business. So you need to be able to manage your projects. You need to be able to manage your sales, your marketing, operations, finance, et cetera. So those are all really important systems as well. But everyone should also have a daily scheduling system. And that is not, like we said, it's not a to-do list, but it's either some type of physical planner. And some people like physical planners. I'm not a fan. We could talk about that if you want. But I also recommend having some type of digital calendar, like a Google Calendar, where you track, what tasks you need to get done for the day and where meetings you have, et cetera.
Why is it you don't like planners or physical planners?
So I personally don't like physical planners because I think if you're not someone who keeps it open and brings it with you everywhere, it'll become a place where you wrote this beautiful planner and you planned out a great day and then you didn't refer to it. You went to your desk, went right into work, and you forgot you planned anything. But when you have a digital calendar, what happens is everything, you can visually see it, you can keep it up, it notifies you on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer. You have reminders everywhere. And it's easier to see how much of a bandwidth you have. So with a day, you have maybe, let's say you work 10 hours in a day. You can fill up the entire day. You can see where each box or time block or meeting is being placed. On a physical planner, oftentimes, if you don't tell yourself when, you just have kind of like a long to-do list. And you're like, here's all the things I'm going to check off throughout the day. And you didn't tell yourself when. And at the end of the day, a lot of those things don't get checked off. And that's okay too. You have to give yourself grace. Not every day you're going to get to everything. But once you've gotten to a place where you're mastering your time and you're super organized, more often than not, you're going to check things off. Like my clients are killing it. Like they know how to manage their time to the point where they're not overdoing it.
Now, I know I don't always get to everything on my to-do list or priority list for the day. And when I can, I just kind of roll it over to the next day. Is that something that you advise your clients?
Absolutely. Because one thing I saw for a lot of my clients, which at first I didn't know would be a thing, is they would have this beautiful time-blocked calendar. And then if they didn't get to something, they just left it there. And then the next day they went and did the next, task and everything. And then Mondays things would just never got tended to. And I was like, you guys didn't think to move it over. And that was something I realized I didn't know I had to teach that. So that absolutely is something I recommend. Adapt the next day if that's the next time you want to do it. Or maybe you have a gap on Friday and you want to move something from Monday to Friday. Be adaptable.
You've talked about how you work with women.
Yeah.
Is that because men are a lost cause?
No, men are not a lost cause. I have worked with men. It's just, I am just passionate about women. I mean, I just feel like it's our time. And I am really passionate for women because naturally we are people who want to nurture others. We want to do everything above and beyond for other people. And I actually noticed that within myself, especially as I got into a serious relationship. It was like I would stop doing certain things that I used to do for myself because I wanted to give everything to him or to friends or family members. And I realized like if my cup is not full, then I can't serve everybody else, right? And that's why I'm passionate about for women because we feel so much guilt, especially for my moms out there. I know like you feel so much guilt when you can't spend as much time as you want with your kids, but then you also expect it to have a career. And like, this is kind of new when you think about it. Like when I think about my grandmother, she was at home the entire time. She spent all her time with her kids. And that's something now that's becoming less and less popular. So that's why I'm passionate about women. Men are not a lost cause. I would work with men, just prefer women.
Well, one of the things that I see all the time, especially with patients, is that they tell me that they don't have enough time to take good care of themselves, right? We all have just a ton of things on our plates, family, businesses, careers, just life in general. And people tend to feel really overwhelmed. Yeah. So what are some of the strategies that you can sort of implement just to take better care of yourself?
Better care of yourself in terms of just overall time management or nutrition, wellness?
Yeah. I mean, exercise, nutrition, getting enough sleep, giving yourself to the people that are important in your life in really sort of healthy ways.
Ooh, okay. So I love this because I call myself a time management coach, right? But in my eyes, I'm a lifestyle designer because I want you.
I mean, did you guys hear that? She's a lifestyle designer. I have never heard that before.
Yeah, I coined it, I guess then. I like to, it's because I'm so passionate about time management because I feel like I was able to design the life of my dreams by becoming this lifestyle designer through time. So what I always recommend is first you need to think about what your ideal lifestyle is. So most people are like, oh, I want to be rich or I want to be fit and healthy. But it's like, what do you really want? Like, write it down. How many hours? I have my clients do this. How many hours do you want to spend on your wellness each day? Like self-care, nutrition, working out. How many hours do you want to spend working? Like if you want to spend 4 hours working, you can absolutely do that. Don't think you need to spend 8 hours because somebody told you that, you need to, unless you have to because your job. But I'm talking for entrepreneurs. Yep. Also, how many hours do you want to spend with your family, with your friends, with yourself? Insert with your hobbies, whatever categories happen in your life. Write them down, how many hours you want to spend each and every day, right? That's a good starting point. The next thing you're going to do is now you start to plan it out into your day. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how my day looks. I love sleep. Prioritize sleep. I was telling you yesterday, if I don't get 7 hours, I'm no use to the world. So I recommend for everyone to find what's your sweet spot for sleep. Like, of course, 6 to 8 is recommended. Some people need a little bit more. Some people say they can survive on less. But I want you to first know how many hours of sleep you need. That's the base. That'll determine what time you're going to wake up. And then once you've woken up, I always say spend at least 30 minutes with yourself. And that's any type of self-care activities. For me, I like to journal, I like to meditate, and I like to read in the morning. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I could check that off in the morning. It gives me some peace. I don't like to talk to a soul before 9 o'clock. So that is why I have that quiet time for myself.
How does that work in marriage?
We say hello, kiss good morning, and then we talk after 9 o'clock.
Got it. Okay.
So I recommend that have that time for yourself in the morning, have some type of routine. It could be short, it could be long, whatever is up to you. Some people like to work out in the morning. I'm not a fan of that, but you figure out when you can actually fit that time in. And then you have a deep focus time. I recommend that you should focus for anywhere between like 2 to 4 hours, nothing more than 4 hours, because I'm sure you know this, after 4 hours, like you start to drift off and your brain can't focus on something for that long. So the first 4 hours of my morning is usually whatever is the most important task of the day gets done during that time. And then I take a break to go work out, eat lunch, and then I come back, do another round of work, but it's more shallow tasks, like things that don't take as much brain work, meetings, other like emails, creating content, things that are a little less, I don't want to say less brain work, but it kind of is, And then I like to have time for myself at the end of the day. Like I like to make time to cook. I like to make time to eat and sit down and have dinner and connect with family and friends. I have to plug that time in because especially as an entrepreneur, if I didn't plug it in, it didn't happen. And that's another thing. If something in your life isn't happening, it's because you're not planning it in. You're not thinking through when is it going to happen. Everybody wants to plan in client meetings, but they don't want to plan in their fun time. On my calendar, it says, Sade, go have fun because I love my work and I could work all night. But I make sure I have that time where I do something fun and then I have a nice wind down routine, which prepares you for sleep. And for a lot of women, nighttime is when our brain is going crazy. And we're thinking of all the different things we have going on, things we have tomorrow. And I think that's a good time to spend some self-care time to wind down for the day. So that's kind of like how I would design high level, all the different aspects of what I want in a day.
And I love how you fit in time for yourself throughout the day.
Yes.
Right. So I know for me, my best days are when the first thing I do in the day is give myself 2 or 3 hours. Mm-hmm. That involves exercising, meditating, praying, getting enough water in, reading. But there are days where I need to see patients. And there are days where my schedule is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So if somebody's working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. kind of nonstop, what advice would you give them in order to be able to take care of themselves during that period?
So if you can, go to sleep early the night before, right? Always be projecting and thinking about the day before. I always say like you should go into the day with a plan. Like, so you should have already had your plan from the night before. So that way you can wake up with the purpose and you know what you're doing. So if you know you have to be at work at 7, I'm guessing you need to wake up by like 6 to leave or whatever, like 5-ish. Then I would say, go to sleep maybe 9 to 10, a little earlier than usual. So you can wake up and have a little bit of time for yourself before you even get into work. But then throughout the day, create your boundaries. I think that's something people don't want to do. And I'll tell you guys one thing I did when I was in corporate. And if my bosses didn't know, this doesn't matter now because I don't work there. But I used to block off meeting time and act like it was a meeting, but it wasn't. It was like time for my breaks. So I remember one time when one of my assistants was like, oh, I see something's on your calendar at 1:00. We don't have anything. And I was like, well, I have something. And it was lunch with myself. And it was a moment for me to take a break. Yeah. So as you can, I know in the medical field it's probably difficult, but if you can, try to really take those breaks because legally, I'm pretty sure you have to take breaks and like set a time for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure legally people care about doctors and nurses like that. So, but I do try to take time for myself.
Yeah.
In between patients, or I'll say something took a little bit longer than it did, or
maneuver.
So, yeah, because it's great for your physical and mental health as well.
Exactly.
Right? I am somebody who is a big believer that our brains are capable of creating.
Yeah.
Right, creating every aspect of our lives, including time. But you make this really incredible claim, and that is that you can save people 4 hours per day.
Oh, easy.
I mean, that is 1/6 of the day. Like, how do you save somebody 4 hours per day?
So, all right. So I'll tell you a story about how I even got into this, right? So I worked in advertising 9 to 5. I worked for big Fortune 500 brands, Coca-Cola, Mercedes-Benz, like crazy schedules, right? And one thing I had to get really good at was managing all those campaigns that had to go out. They had to go out and they were pretty much up to my team because we were the account managers. So I had to learn how to get really good with my time. And also, I had all these passions outside of work. I'm a multi-passionate person. I had a blog, an e-commerce store. I hosted events. You've even been to spoken at some of my events. And I wanted to do it all, right? And I always felt like from messages from all these women who were like higher up in my company telling me, you can't have it all. You can't have the kids. You can't have the good career. You can't have all this at the same time. And I was like, that's BS. I'm going to figure out how I can do it. So one way actually I made sure that I could do that was getting really good with my time management to the point where people started to ask me like, how do you find the time to do all these things? So one day, one of my friends and I was in this creator group with about 5 other girls. I was like, come down to Starbucks. It was like on 23rd, I remember, in the city. And we sat down. I had a little couple slides and I taught them a couple of things about how they can rearrange their day, batch tasks, like similar tasks together, etc. They came back to me the next week and they were like, Sade, I saved about 4 hours each day. I saved 28 hours over the entire week based on the suggestions you gave me. And I was like, what? Like, I never quantified it. And that's when I said, oh, okay. So I took that same framework and I started saying it online. And that's how I even got into coaching. So now I'm able to actually save people 4 hours in a day just because they become more intentional. And usually those times are saved in the morning, about 1 to 2 hours, and then in the night, about 1 to 2 hours. And that's how 4 hours is usually saved in people's day.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Can you give us like 5 time management tips that you have?
Okay. Just 5. All right. The first one, I'm going to say, number 1, pick a day and a time that you will consistently sit down and plan for the upcoming week at least. Now, I really like when people plan for like at least a month and have a high level idea of what's going on for the month. But if you can at least sit down, have that one day to plan, that's my number 1 tip. My number 2 tip is to implement some routines into your life. And people always say to me, oh, I don't have routines. It's so hard for me to build routines. But you do have routines. And it's probably that you wake up, roll over, look at your phone. Then you see an email you have to answer to, run to your computer or run to work. And you're just like in a hurry. So start creating some routines that actually benefit you. Time to meditate, pray, read in the morning, a routine at night to wind you down. Start implementing some routines. Number 3 is stop using to-do lists, which we've already said. Start actually sitting down and prioritizing. So when you are planning in that time, during that time and you're planning, start thinking about what's important, what's urgent, what are the high impact tasks that are actually going to move the needle in my life, and actually start doing that. So that would be the 3rd one for time management. The 4th one, start practicing your discipline, which is something I don't think people always associate with time management, but it does come down to being able to control your emotions, having an idea of like controlling your behavior, because a lot of people are looking to just be motivated. And the thing is, you're not always going to be motivated, but you can be disciplined. And that comes down to doing what you say you're going to do. And a lot of women I work with, they're like, well, I want to build up my confidence. And I'm like, your confidence is low because when you say you're going to do things, you typically don't do them. And your confidence will boost, and so will your discipline. So start practicing discipline, even in the smallest ways. Start getting yourself to practice discipline. One way I learned to practice discipline is by doing fitness challenges. That helped me out a lot. I also did something called Fearless February, like in 2020, where every single day I made myself do something scary that I've never done before. And that scared I don't want to curse, but it scared the heck out of me. So that was something. So that's what, 4 things I gave?
Yeah, what was one of the scary things you did?
Okay, one of the scary things I did was I hosted this event at my company. Which sounds like, is that really scary if you host events? But I had never hosted such a huge corporate event. And I was the leader of it. And I actually was the host and had to facilitate a panel of like all these established people in their career. And I was like maybe 2 years in. So I felt like I was like underqualified. But it went really well. So that was terrifying. I did that. I also took a lot of cold showers. I had never done that.
Oh, I've been doing that.
Yeah.
I've been doing that for the last...
It's scary.
Probably 6 weeks now.
Wow.
But sometimes it's the hardest thing that I'll do in that day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's a mindset shift. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you are a coach,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got your own business.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yes. So I have coaching programs as well as I do one-off coaching services. So my coaching program, my signature coaching program is called Overwhelmed to Organize. And it's for those ambitious women that usually aspire to have a business or they're already working in their business. And they just want to learn how to be more productive, how to actually do what they say they're going to do, get organized, and 10x their results. So it's funny enough, a lot of my clients come to me and they think they need another strategy when really they just needed some mindset help and to get organized. And the next thing you know, they're hitting their first 5-figure month, or they're 4x in their sales in real estate or within their business. But they're also spending more time with their family and friends and realizing they do have the time to actually sit down and go on a date with someone or meet somebody new. These are some of the common things that I've helped people through, or that they can actually have time to work out. Because that's one thing, ambitious people, they never want to go and exercise because they're like, oh, I don't have time for that. But it's like, that would actually give you more energy, give you great endorphins throughout the day, and you would actually help you to be more productive.
So that's awesome. So you specifically work with women, or you also work with some men, or?
I do work with men, but usually my coaching programs are filled with women. And I coach for typically anywhere between 3 to 4 months, and it can go longer if people want. But it really just depends.
And what are some of the challenges that some of your clients face?
Oh, so many. So I'm trying to think of something recently. I had a client who, like I said, she came to me. This is a lot of business owners. They come to me and they're like, "Oh, I need a new strategy. I just need a better schedule." But really, her issues were around how she was seeing herself. So she didn't even realize that she was a really big perfectionist. And I think there's this idea that perfectionism is this like positive, negative thing. Like it's like one of those things like it's negative, but like it's kind of good to be a perfectionist because that means you care about your work. But at the end of the day, I had to show her that you're a perfectionist because you're really just super scared. And you're so scared of taking risks. You're so scared of being seen. You're so scared of being judged that you're now not taking action and you're procrastinating on things. And that's when she realized like, oh my gosh, I actually have a mindset issue that was holding me back. I had the business strategies. I could do it. But I was trying to get it perfect that I was stalling and never launching. So that was one of those breakthroughs that doesn't necessarily seem like it's related to time, but it did affect how she was spending her time and how she was like progressing in her life.
Well, I used to be a perfectionist. I'm a reformed perfectionist.
I call myself a recovering perfectionist.
Because you can always slip back in, I feel like, right?
It comes up. That's the thing. These things don't go away. It's like when women come to me, they're like, "Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I want to never feel overwhelmed again." That's like saying I never want to feel happy again, sad again, fear again. You're going to feel those emotions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. What are the things that you do to sort of stop yourself from slipping back into that sort of perfectionism mindset?
So I catch myself with questions. So even like coming here, right? I was like, oh, I want my makeup to be perfect. I want my outfit to be perfect. I had to look good. And then I was like, but like, why? Like, do you like how you look now? Yes. Is there anything wrong? Could it be better? Of course, it could always be better. Okay, so could you go out like how you are now? Yes. Like just pattern interrupt. Like ask yourself some questions to really get yourself back into your body. Another thing I'll do is I do breath work. I'm sure you're familiar with breath work. Yep. I do 4-4-4 breathing. So breathing in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. And I'll do those things to bring myself back to the present and just shock myself out of like that perfectionism mindset.
That's awesome. So you take action. And it's one of the things that I do too. Like if there's something I'm kind of like, oh, I need to wait until everything looks good. I'm just like,
put it out there. Yeah.
Just do it right now.
Yep.
And usually it just works itself out.
And you learn quicker. And then now you can like make it better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where is it that people can find you?
So people can find me on my website, which is thefireinsidesade.com, or you can find me at Sade Kelly _ on all social media platforms.
Well, Sade, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And you guys have been listening to another episode of Surviving Your Brain. Thank you for watching.